Ebusianfo masan so atena se aha Ghanatube so ensem ne de edoso nya ekoso ewo oman Ghana mu ene ye kase ye beka ye mfiri hanum se adofo ensem a ekoso ebi ne yenkotie.
I see. You make the point that this whole thank you tour was, in your view, ill-conceived right from the beginning. I mean, but if you listen to the objectives that were outlined by the party before the tour began, it was quite clear what they wanted to achieve: to go back to the people, say thank you to them even though the party lost, and then also take the opportunity to address some of the issues. For instance, some factors that may have led to the party's defeat. You still were not convinced that these were right reasons to go on this tour?
No, and that is precisely why I say it was ill-conceived. You know, the party has had problems with leadership bias, or at least perceptions of the same. So now we set up the Mike Okwe committee to investigate the reasons why we lost an election. People wondered why that committee was composed the way it was. They finished their work, and it is not shared with the general membership of the party, which is reasonable sometimes. Maybe it's not everything that should be put out in public. But it is clear from the kind of things that Dr. Bawumia is saying on the drill that he is privy to the contents of the report, whilst other people who may ultimately and as of right contest for the leadership are not privy to the contents of the report. That is not fair. Secondly, the General Secretary of the party issued what do they call it, an edict or fatwa against saying anything that might excite disaffection, etc., etc., and invited Adwa Safo to disciplinary committee. And now here is the flag bearer of the party, Dr. Bawumia, in effect going after the former president, Nana Akufo-Addo, for reasons that party insiders look quite obvious. But if we are not trying to excite disaffection, it sounds like some of the things that Dr. Bawumia is saying and implying and indirectly attributing to the president would not engender goodwill in the party and will lead to rancorous debate. So that in itself appears to be undermining the stated purpose of the tour.
I see. But you talk about some of the things that have been said during this tour so far. What Dr. Bawumia essentially talking about some of the things that led to the party's defeat, fuel prices being increased just weeks or days before the election, and then some of the policies by the SWAL administration that he was vice president to Nana Akufo-Addo. You term that as an attack on Nana. Why is that?
Oh, of course. You know, we had an executive presidency, and executive power was vested in one person. So even though he artfully uses the royal we, etc., etc., the reality is that if you understand language, when the vice president says reshuffle for 8 years, he means the president. You know, if you understand language. And this is fueled by the knowledge in the party that the former president has made a decision and communicated the same to some members that he intends to support another candidate. I mean, all those are issues that we can debate later about the appropriateness of supporting Bawumia and the tensions that occurred during the last primary and all that. But having said all that, I think Dr. Bawumia cannot eat his cake and have it. You know, you cannot be touted by the likes of Osafo Maafo as the most influential and consequential vice president in our history. You were the economic guru who were going to rebuild our economy and take all the plaudits, and then when we finally lose an election, turn around and pretend you never had any influence. I think that that is wrong on two scores. It kind of portrays him unfairly or unfortunately as unprincipled, and it also portrays him as ungrateful to Nana Akufo-Addo, who has done so much for him. if Dr. Bawumia indeed disagreed with those policies, then he should have forcefully made the case in the inner councils of government. The General Secretary, Mr. Kudua, before he issued his edict, had gone around telling whoever will listen that he was virtually the only person who took on the president. Everybody else was quiet. So, for example, there were witnesses there. Did Dr. Bawumia ever speak in cabinet against the cathedral? Did he ever condemn corruption? I mean, did he ever raise his voice against what happened to Afoko and Kwabena Japan, etc., etc.? I mean, if at that time he didn't say anything, then it means that he did not give the president his best advice. And that is unfair. And if indeed all these major issues were done without regard to his opinion, then it begs the question, why did he stay there as a sympatheni and just enjoy his benefits while his judgment was ignored?
Well, but those who are with him will make the point that he made it quite clear. They say that he made it clear, for instance, that he did not support the e-levy even at the cabinet level. That's according to those who were there and speak for him as well. That even before the elections, when he was launching his bold solutions in February last year at the UPSA, he made it clear he was going to abolish e-levy, for instance, as well. That's not convincing enough?
No, but let's even concede the e-levy, which I doubt. What did he say about what happened to Afoko and Kwabena Japan that foundationally destroyed the party? What did he say on record against corruption? What did he say on the record against impunity? Which one of those major deals that tarnish our image did he condemn? When did he raise his voice against nurses and teachers who were not being paid? You know, I am just saying that there is no evidence that he did that.
Then you mentioned, for instance, about what the way forward, in your view, should be like. There are those who hold the position that he is not necessarily running away from the factors or what his contribution was to the defeat of the party in the 2024 elections. Do you get that sense as well, that he is maybe blaming everything else but him, as some persons within the party have suggested?
Yeah, he's blaming the former president. It's very clear that that is what he's doing. And it looks even worse because it appears that this change of heart and endorsement of candor on the part of the former vice president and running mate is based on his knowledge that finally his mentor has decided that he will not support him anymore. So, in effect, if Nana Addo was still in his camp, he would happily still be a defender of Nana Akufo-Addo. And I think that we should honestly debate the record of Nana Akufo-Addo. And I indeed agree that he was the major reason why our government was as bad as it was. But there were a lot of people who aided and abetted his malfeasance, including the most consequential vice president in our history, according to their own accountant. And you can't have it both ways. You can't sit there for 8 years as vice president and enjoy all the privileges, and then as soon as you realize that the man has changed his mind, all of a sudden discover all his faults. I mean, we would have done well to hear these faults. And of course, if you are in a government and time after time you are the principal advice is ignored, the example is clearly there. Odinga resigned as vice president of Kenya because he disagreed with the direction of the country. After all, when you join a ticket, you do not hand over your conscience. You're still accountable for your decisions.
Are you saying on record that Nana Addo Akufo-Addo is not supporting Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia anymore should he decide to contest the flag bearership in 2028?
Yes, I am.
You know that for sure?
Yes, I do.
How did you get to know this?
I can't tell you that, but if it is not correct, whoever is in the know can correct me, and as events unfold, we'll see whether what I have just told you is true or not.
I see. And how you got to know? Who told you? Did the person give reasons why Nana has changed his mind in supporting Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia?
Out of respect to the former president, I will let him lay out his reasoning himself when he's ready.
But you still stand by that position that it is based on what you know. Nana Akufo-Addo is not supporting Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia if he should contest as flag bearer ahead of the 2028 elections.
That is correct.
I see. But then also, going forward, should the party continue with this tour or pull the brakes, as some have suggested?
I will pull the brakes for a number of reasons, and I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that all these things that are happening are necessarily the fault of Dr. Bawumia. Sometimes bad things happen in spite of your best efforts. I think his idea that he wanted to invite his former adversaries to join him on a thank you tour is a noble idea, but it of course underlines one of the inconsistencies in the party. Once an election is over, the party reverts to the leadership of the national chairman. So if something like this is being done, it should be done under the aegis of the national chairman. So when Dr. Bawumia's spokesperson said, oh, he was generous enough to invite his former competitors, he in effect is acknowledging that the former vice president is planning and executing the thank you tour instead of the party.
And so with the national chairman taking a break, it should, from your view, effectively give an opportunity for the party to also consider these divergent views about the thank you tour and recalibrate?
They should, and I take them at their word, both Dr. Bawumia and the party leadership, that this was supposed to foster unity and goodwill, and it sounds like that is not happening. And if there is exchange of blows and even a stabbing, it really doesn't portend well for a primary. That will be more heated, and it just suggests that maybe we have more work to do behind the scenes before we start taking things public. But more to the point, I want to very respectfully urge my party members not to forget about Ghana while we lick our wounds. A lot of consequential things are happening, and I urge us to re-engage on Galamsey, to re-engage on accountability, to re-engage even on the constitutional reform process that will bear on how the Chief Justice is being removed and how the President is trying to pack the Supreme Court. If we do not take care and we forget too much about Ghana, there might not be a Ghana to lead by the time we are ready to re-engage.
I see. But the likes of Kenneth Japong have called for at least some act of goodwill on the part of the party to bring in some persons who have left the party. You mentioned Paul Afoko, for instance, and all he's been through. And then also, he even mentions Alan Chamanting and others who have left the party. Is it a call or an appeal that you support? And do you see the leadership of the party taking this up for consideration?
Yeah, I fully support that. I actually want to go a step further. There are some of them who don't need amnesties. When you say amnesty, it presupposes that the person did something wrong. I think we owe Afoko and Kenneth Japong an apology for the way we viciously and undemocratically took away the mandate they had won fair and square. So we need to do more than just give them amnesties as if they did something wrong. If we are principled and open-minded and generous, we should acknowledge that we did them some wrong. And not only that, I always support reconciliation and bringing people into the party, because we know that we cannot win 2028 even without some NDC help. We need NDC members, and 25% of those who voted for John Mahama were MPP people who went into the ballot box according to exit polling and voted for John Mahama. So reconciliation and reaching out and broadening our base should always be a top priority of the party.
And the next part of my question is whether you think the current crop of leadership would consider this particular appeal that you support, and even mentioning other names apart from what Kenny Japan mentioned, other names who could be reached out to that really to appeal to them to come back. Do you see the leadership doing that?
It is possible for them to do that, and if they don't do that, it will be unwise and not in the interest of the party.
Why do you hold the view that the party should apologize to Paul Afoko and Kwabena Japan?
Because we removed them on trumped-up charges. Everybody knows that people decided that they might be sympathetic to Alan Martin and decided that because of that they will remove them. I believe, and I stated it then, I am not one of those people who only looks at the political wins and state my opinion. I thought that both the mandates of Afoko and Kwabena Japan on one hand and the mandate of Nana Akufo-Addo were legitimate mandates, and that as Democrats we should respect both mandates. It is unfortunate that we didn't respect the mandate of Afoko and Kwabena Japan. And I think that if we are the mature, generous, principled party that we hold to be, the best thing to do is to apologize to them and acknowledge that we did them wrong.
Dr. Arthur Kennedy, I do appreciate your time on this show tonight, and I know that as the days go by, we'll be engaging some more. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Ebushafo we de wankasa ode waso ate edweni ehu nia ekoso ewo yemai Ghana mu ene mesho se ko comment section na fa comment no ebrem na mejibre akenkan ede amofefefe aha eye Ghanatube so insema ekoso ena onsa ebeka unsubscribe ya subscribe na hit notification bell no for more news updates. See ade akam.